In today's video, we're going to be covering some of the most frequently asked questions about teaching English in Vietnam. I'm going to be covering things that I think are important for you to know, as well as covering some of the questions that you've all left in comments in previous videos. I'm Alex Stevenson from Ninja Teacher, and let's head out and I will answer these questions while we're out and about to make this video a little bit more interesting. So the first question is, what are the requirements to teach English in Vietnam? So to teach legally in Vietnam, to be employed by a company here and get a work permit as well as a temporary resident card, you need to have a completed bachelor's degree in any subject as well as a teaching certification. And that can be a teaching license if you're a licensed teacher back home, but it can also be a TEFL or TESL or CELTA certification, which is a teaching English course that you can do online or in person. And those are the things required to teach legally and work in Vietnam. Now, another thing to consider is, are you a native English speaker? Now, this is a bit more of a complicated issue, but essentially, if you're from the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, or South Africa, then you're considered a native English speaker by the Vietnamese government. But most importantly, a lot of schools will only hire native English speakers or prefer to hire native English speakers. So while if you're fluent in English and you're not from one of these countries, it is possible, you do have to realize that it's going to be more difficult. And even if you're fluent and you have high qualifications, it still might be a little bit more tough to get a job than it would be for a native English speaker. I know the whole topic of native English speakers and whether it's right or wrong that native English speakers get preference over someone who might actually have really good qualifications, who's not a native English speaker, is a sensitive topic, and I get that. And whether it's right or wrong is a different topic. Right now, I'm just explaining the realities of the situation so that you have a better understanding after watching this and you can make your own decisions about whether you want to pursue this or not. So what if you don't have a bachelor's degree? Well, my suggestions would either be to consider teaching English in Cambodia, where a degree is not required. And if you're a native English speaker, you can get a job fairly easily, even without a degree, if you've got a TEFL certification. And then the other option is some online teaching companies will hire people who don't have a bachelor's degree, although there are far fewer. A lot of the online teaching companies do want someone to have a bachelor's degree, so that's just something to consider. So what are the salaries and working hours like in Vietnam? So this can depend on a few different factors, like the number of hours you work per week, the school, the hourly rates, and I made a detailed video breaking this down so you can understand that you can fall into different categories of pay scale based on those number of hours you teach and the pay per hour. But we find for the most part, first-time English teachers usually make between 1,400 and 1,800 US dollars per month, and this can go up over time. It can get into a higher range when you've been teaching for longer, and that's for teaching usually between 15 and 25 teaching hours per week. Now, on top of that, you'll usually have lesson planning that you have to do, as well as maybe some admin. So typically you're going to be working usually up to 30 hours per week, maybe a bit less than that, depending on the school, depending on the offer, and you'll be making in that range of about 1,400 to 1,800 US dollars. And we found jobs for hundreds of our graduates at Ninja Teacher Academy from our TEFL courses, and we've been able to find everyone jobs at least in this range or more. Okay, here's a question from a viewer about whether you can pick the age range of students in Vietnam that you teach, because they're concerned about teaching kindergarten students. Now, typically it's a good idea to be flexible when you first start teaching in Vietnam for a few different reasons. One is it's good to get experience with different age groups so that you can at least be able to teach different age groups. Secondly, a lot of schools require you to teach multiple age groups, so you might not get your preferred age group in the beginning. And then over time, once you've worked with that company for a while, you can perhaps request more classes with a certain age group that you prefer, or work your way into a different job that has more of the age group that you prefer to teach. And thirdly, you might actually be surprised about what age groups you like to teach. A lot of people think that they're not gonna like teaching little kids, and then they actually love it. And they thought, maybe they prefer to teach adults, and adult jobs are much more rare than young learners. So, a lot of people kind of think that they want to teach adults. But then when they teach adults, they actually realize, oh, I actually preferred kids. So it's good to at least try out with different age groups, see which ones you like, and then you can work with your company maybe to get more hours with a certain age group, or potentially move jobs after you've got some experience at one job. What is your best tip on how to select a place to eat so that you don't end up with diarrhea? So some people, when they first come to Vietnam especially, I think, get an upset stomach or sometimes even food poisoning. But in my entire time in Asia, I think I've only got food poisoning probably like 3 times. And my totally unscientific theory is that you just kind of get used to it and your stomach gets used to it. A lot of places are very hygienic, and it's sometimes hard to tell when you see these kind of street food restaurants because it might not look it, but some are better than others. It's hard to know. Based on reputation, I think, is the best way to go, and also if you see a lot of people eating there, if it's a very popular spot, you're probably fine. 18 degrees is a good summer's day in the UK. Can't believe you act like it's winter. Yeah, you just get used to the hot temperatures. 30 degrees Celsius in Saigon is pretty much standard, so I lived there for 3 years, so it basically never gets cold. So when you do get into a cold situation in Vietnam, it's really weird and different and you're not used to it. A question about how do motorbike licenses work here in Vietnam. Well, you do need to have a Vietnamese motorbike license to ride legally in Vietnam. And the easiest option is if you have a motorbike license from back home, you can bring that and just convert it. If you have a car license from back home, you can bring that, convert it into a car license here, and then you just have to do the driving test in Vietnam. And if you don't have any license back home or you can't bring it with you, then you have to do the full written test plus the riding test. And the written test was previously all in Vietnamese, so there was kind of a workaround system for that in the past. But I think they're trying to redo the system a bit now so that foreigners can more easily go through the whole process. But if you have your original licenses, bring those, it'll make the process a lot easier. Adam asked, what's life like in Vietnam now for expats? The answer is pretty much like normal. Other than the lockdown that happened early last year and then the second lockdown that happened only here in Da Nang last year, things are pretty much normal. People are going to work, children are going to school, people are teaching English, people are going out to bars and clubs, restaurants, and that's because there's less than 100 active cases in the entire country. They're all under quarantine and contained, and this is mostly due to Vietnam's very effective border control and contact tracing within the country. If you watch all my videos from last year, you can kind of see what day-to-day life is like. I have quite a few vlogs just out and about, and you'll see it's, pretty much normal. Gary asked, are you still teaching English in Vietnam now? No, I actually haven't taught English for probably 4 or 5 years now, because I've been running Ninja Teacher Academy, which is our TEFL school, which trains and gets people TEFL certified to teach English and then helps them move to Vietnam. Obviously things have changed a little bit lately with the way people can get into Vietnam, but I'm still doing that full time. So how do you find a teaching job? Well, ideally the company that you take your TEFL certification with will have some resources and connections with schools so that they can help you with that process. That's something that we do at Ninja Teacher Academy. But a lot of the online TEFL companies these days don't really have many connections in the countries that you might want to teach in. So you might have to do that on your own, in which case Facebook groups are a good place to start. There's a lot of teaching English job Facebook groups, so you can just search that and you'll find groups that you can join, and different recruiters and schools will post job openings in there. Then we have a question from David about whether our Vietnam Fast Track is available for those who've taken a TEFL with another company. So if you don't know about it, it's basically a program that we offer that gives you some extra support with moving to Vietnam. Everything from getting some practical teaching experience with Vietnamese learners, as well as helping you arrive in Vietnam, meeting you when you get here, and then assisting you with finding a job. And because we have a lot of connections with schools, we know which ones are hiring, which ones might fit your preferences, so we just help you with that whole process. And yes, it is open to those who have taken a TEFL with another company, as long as that TEFL meets certain standards that we have. Because there's a lot of courses online at the moment that are just basically text. Maybe you get them off a discount site, and they really don't do all that much to prepare you to be a good English teacher. So unfortunately we can't accept those TEFL certifications, and you should consider taking one that has some kind of online practical training at the very least, video footage in the course, and lots of interaction with your trainers, feedback on your lesson plans so that your lesson plans are actually usable and good. But yes, as long as you've taken a good quality TEFL certification, the whole point of the Vietnam Fast Track is an add-on to usually an online TEFL course or even an in-person TEFL course if you want the support in country added practical training, and just help with that whole process. So is it possible to move to Vietnam right now? I did a whole video on this a couple of months back, and nothing much has changed since then. Technically, yes, it is possible, but it's expensive, time consuming, and quite difficult to get a job with a school that will actually help you with all the complicated steps of getting here. And you do have to do a 14-day quarantine and spend a lot more than you would normally. So it's difficult and expensive, and it's probably best to wait until more vaccines roll out and perhaps the border quarantine gets a bit shorter or less expensive, and that will make it easier to move to Vietnam. When will that happen? It's really hard to say. All we can do is listen to the government updates and all the news coming from them, and we'll post any news on this channel and on our websites. If you want to get in touch with us there, we'll give you the latest news. AVTV Vietnam asks, why did you name your channel Ninja Teacher? So when I was moving to Asia in 2013, I wanted to come up with a name for my YouTube channel and my blog, and I was moving to Asia to become a teacher, and I knew that there were ninjas in Asia, and I just thought it was a catchy name, thought it had a good ring to it, and it was memorable, and the domain name ninjateacher.com had just become available. Someone had let it expire, so I thought that was a good one to use as a brand name, and it's kind of stuck over the years. Isn't teaching English online much easier and more flexible than teaching in person? Yeah, this is an interesting question, and you would think so, right? Because you can just work from your laptop wherever you are, work from home. However, I found a lot of people in Vietnam have tried online teaching and then have preferred to go back to in-person teaching. And I think there's a lot of different reasons for this. Some of those reasons might be the energy you get in a classroom with real students, the real live human interaction as opposed to through a screen. Online teaching jobs also seem to be very systematized. A lot of the platforms that you teach on require you to teach in a specific way. There's not as much creativity and freedom as an English teacher. And a lot of these online teaching companies have very strict rules about cancelling classes, showing up on time, and you can get deductions for certain things. And then another big thing is there's just a lot of in-person teaching jobs. Vietnamese culture really values education, and the pinnacle of education here is in-person teaching. So parents are going to pay to send their money to these English centers, so that's where there's a lot of jobs. So it really makes sense to get well-paying, consistent work at these jobs in person. And then a huge thing is a lot of people who are teaching English online want to live abroad, and to live abroad you need a visa, and to get a work permit you need to be employed by a Vietnamese company. Most of these online teaching companies are based in China, so you're not employed in Vietnam by a Vietnamese company, so you can't get a work permit. And even any online teaching companies based in Vietnam, I don't think they would offer you a full-time contract where you get a work permit. So essentially you're on your own for the visa, and things are more and more complicated these days with visas. It's forever changing, but unless you have a work permit and a temporary resident card, things are going to be more tricky with extending visas, especially without being able to do border runs. And this is always constantly changing in Vietnam, and it does seem like it's moving in the direction that unless you're working legally and have a work permit in Vietnam, it's probably going to be a little bit trickier to stay long term in the country. So we have a comment here saying, I'm interested in teaching English in Cambodia. And yeah, right now we've seen some people being able to move to Cambodia to start teaching English. The borders are a little bit more open than Vietnam. It's a bit cheaper, still a little bit complicated to get in, but it is possible. So if you're interested in teaching English in Cambodia and potentially maybe moving over to Vietnam when it's possible in the future, that's an option. So if you're interested in that, send us a message on ninjateacher.com. We have a partner in Cambodia that can potentially help you with this process, so we can put you in touch if that's something you're interested in. Question about how long classes are. Usually they're around 90 minutes. I would say that's around the standard. It could be 1 hour depending on the age group, depending on the school, but typically that's what an average lesson length is going to be. Are teachers at public schools in Vietnam required to have office hours, and if so, how long? Yeah, when I was in South Korea, if you worked at public schools, you had to be in the office when you weren't working. But most jobs in Vietnam require you only to come in for the classes, and you can do lesson planning at home. This is especially the case for English centers, which have most of the teaching hours on the weekends and evenings during the week, with some days off during the week. And with most public school companies, which is a company that you're employed with, and then they send you out to different public schools to teach, or even one public school, but you're normally employed through an agency or a public school company, then it depends on the company. I do know of at least one where you do have to go into the office and check in each day, and then they actually have buses that take you to the schools from the office, and then you also have to be there for a certain amount of time to do some lesson planning and check in each day. But there are also ones that you just go into the classes and you can just go straight to the school, teach your classes, go home, and then do all your admin and lesson planning at home. So what is the cost of living like in Vietnam? Most of the big cities are similar, and you can easily live a comfortable lifestyle on less than $1,000 a month. That's just an easy round figure to give you. I've made videos in the past where I've showed you that I've lived off, $600 a month, and obviously your living costs are going to vary depending on your lifestyle, but for the most part you can get a nice apartment, eat out a lot, live well, go out, party if you want, travel on about $1,000 or less. So when you compare that to what you can earn as an English teacher, you can live a really great lifestyle in Vietnam as an English teacher. It's almost the Tet Lunar New Year holiday now. That's why you can see all these flags here. It's a time when people really get into the culture here and take time off. So there's a comment here about how our TEFL course is $450 and some courses are $10, and he's like, no wonder money comes so fast. So this was actually on a video where I talked about how much revenue the company earned, as well as how many people Ninja Teacher Academy has helped. So we've had over 1,000 graduates, and actually the whole point of the video is that I didn't personally pay myself much money. The point was to show how I lived in Asia for years and years and paid myself like $1,000 a month and lived really great lifestyles, and that money is not all that important at the end of the day. So really all the money that comes into Ninja Teacher Academy goes towards providing a good service. Now the reason a course would be more expensive than some other ones is because what does it offer? If you've got an experienced trainer that actually teaches you on live sessions, like our trainer Claire, she has a master's in education from Harvard University, and we've got weekly sessions where you can actually join these sessions, do practical training, get feedback on your progress, get feedback on your lesson plans. We have the majority of our 4-week in-person classroom TEFL course video recorded and added onto an online platform where you get access to all of this. So you actually see a course that's usually $1,500, you can watch it all online. And it was actually quite interesting to see last year there were a lot of TEFL companies that just popped up out of nowhere. The reason for this is I think people saw an opportunity, everyone's online, all these in-person courses weren't running, and people just decided to create a TEFL course because the barrier to entry is fairly low. Anyone can create a TEFL course. Now there's 2 questions you want to ask yourself. You want to get the certificate right so that you can get a proper job, but do you want to be a good teacher? Do you want to feel confident in the classroom? Do you want to be able to get a good job because the company is well known in Vietnam or whatever country you go to? Do you want to do a service to the students that you start teaching because you actually have some skills to begin with? And do you actually want to invest in yourself and your own education? And do you want to enjoy the course? Like, do you want to watch video footage of real classroom lessons and see how it looks? It's much more enjoyable and entertaining to do a 120-hour course when the content is engaging. So those are just some questions to ask yourself when you're considering taking an online TEFL course and which one you should choose. If it's text only, which most of these super cheap ones are going to be, you're going to be so bored going through a 120-hour course, you'll want to kill yourself. And you also want to make sure that the certificate can be used in the country you're going to be teaching in. For example, if you choose a UK-based company, the process of getting your TEFL authenticated for coming to teach English in Vietnam has to be done in the UK. So if you're a US citizen and you take an online TEFL course from a UK-based company, you're going to have to send your certificate back to the UK or get a company to take it through a complicated process to get it authenticated, and that can actually cost several £100s. So if you've bought a cheap online TEFL course to save money, then you're actually shooting yourself in the foot a little bit with that. At the end of the day, the choice is yours about how much or how little you want to invest in a course and what is important to you to get out of a course. But I just wanted to raise those points so you're fully aware of all the things to consider when you're looking at the price tags of different courses. If you are interested in taking our online TEFL course, now is a good time because we're offering a discount until the end of January, so in a few days' time. So you can click the link below, get access to that discount and sign up for our online TEFL course if that's something you're interested in. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there for now for this video. If you have further questions, clarification on the answers I gave here, leave a comment below. I will get to them in a new video or I'll answer them in the comments. And tomorrow I'm leaving for Saigon, so stay tuned for a video about what it's like there at the moment. Make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for new videos. I'll speak to you then. Peace.